In this session, we are going to talk about data types in C++. Let's try to understand the importance of data type first, then we will go on to see what are the several data types we have. Let's take an example. Let's say I write an expression in C++ x equal to y plus z. Now there are several things here. For compiler to know that y and z can be added and that value can be given to x, compiler has to know that whether the operation that we are performing on y and z, which is addition, is valid for y and z or not. So consider in real life, if we have alphabets and if we try to add two alphabets, that is not possible in real life, but if we add two numbers, that is fine. So similarly here the C++ compiler also wants to know that whether the operation that we are performing on this particular variables, is this operation valid for these variables or not. So for this particular expression to make sense, this expression must be suitably declared and the programmer must specify that entities x, y and z exist and what is the data type, or for that matter they are of types for which equal to and addition operator makes sense. So this is one use case of data type. So I talked about declaration in the last session. So whenever we declare, we write int x. Here int is the data type. So let's try to understand what are the several things happening here. Here we are informing the compiler that there is a variable called x that exists and x is having the data type int. Now this tells the compiler that okay, whatever operations are valid for an integer will be valid for x as well. So let's say the operations valid for integer are plus, minus, division, modulo. We'll talk about these operators later on. So let's say these are some of the, let's say multiplication, let's say these are some of the operators valid for integer. So if I use any of these operators for x, then this is valid and compiler is fine with it. So this is one use case of using a data type, that the compiler knows that this particular variable of this is of this particular data type and these are the operations that can be done on this particular variable. Another thing is that these variables have to be stored in memory. So when we are storing anything in memory, we need to know the size. We need to know the size of that particular variable or that particular element. So I'll repeat, we need to know the size of element for storing them in memory. So another use case of data type is that we tell the compiler that this particular variable is of this particular size, or for that matter this variable will occupy this much space in the memory. So we have several data types and each data type has its own size. When I'm talking about this much memory, we will see that which particular data type occupies how much memory. So here we are trying to understand that why do we need data type or what is the use case of data type. So when I'm talking of data type, I am saying that the variable here is of which particular type. So this is data type and we give this data type to a particular variable while declaring the variable only. So now we need to know that what are the different data types that a particular language supports. So in C++, the various fundamental data types that we have are, now let's talk about several data types in C++. So we have these fundamental data types. Apart from these fundamental data types, we also have derived data types. We have pointers, arrays, reference types, and we also have some user defined data types. In this we have structures, classes, enums, and type defs. So when I talk of fundamental data types, these fundamental data types are also known as primitive data type or built-in data types. So these are called fundamental or built-in data types. As the name suggests, built-in data types means they are defined in the compilers and we can use them directly. Apart from this, we have using these data types, we also have pointers, arrays, and references. We will talk about each one of them in the later session. And we also have user-defined data types. So we have user-defined data types which user defines by themselves. So we have structures, classes, enums, and type def. In this session, we will talk about enums and type defs, and we will talk about all the fundamental data types that we have. Apart from these fundamental data types, derived data types which are derived from these data types, we will discuss each of them in the later sessions. The pointers is very important, array is important. So each of them will have a separate session. We will also have session for structures and classes. In this session again, we will have discussion over these fundamental data types and we have discussion over user defined data types. So starting with these fundamental data types, each data type has its own use case. We will talk about it and we will also see that what is the size of each data type. When I talk about size of data type, I mean that what amount of space these data type take in memory. So starting from Boolean, let's first talk about Boolean data type. So Boolean data types can have two values, true or false. So if we have to declare a variable of type Boolean, we declare it in this way. We say bool x. So here x is a data type, x is a variable whose data type is Boolean, and we are using the keyword bool to declare x. And as I said that x can have only two values, true and false. So let's try to understand what do we mean by this. So generally Boolean is used at places where we are doing some logical operation or comparisons. When I'm talking about logical operations, we will talk a bit more about logical operations when we go on to talk about operation and expressions. Let's take a small example here. Let's say I'm checking whether two numbers are equal or not. So let's say I do x equal to y. Let's say I do bool z is equal to x equal to y. We use double equal to for checking whether two numbers are equal or not in C++. So in this case, there are two scenarios that either x is equal to y or x is not equal to y. If x is not equal to y, z will have value as false. And in case x is equal to y, z will be true. So Boolean, again I'm repeating, can have only two values, true or false. So we generally use booleans where we have to do some testing. We have to test some condition. Let's say we have to test that number of elements is greater than 10, or for that matter whether two numbers are greater than each other. We can also convert these booleans to integers. So by definition, when we convert boolean true to an integer, we get value 1 and false corresponds to value 0. Let's see an example. So let's write a code. Let's say I write bool a equal to true, b equal to false. And let's say I do something like boolean x equal to a plus b. So in this case, here a is true, which means a is having value as 1 and b is having value as 0. So in this case, what will be the value of x? Since x is a boolean and here we are doing an arithmetic operation, we are adding two booleans, and again I'll repeat that booleans, if converted to integers, true gives the value 1 and false gives the value 0. So here in this case x will have value 1, but since x is a boolean, if we try and print x here, we will get the value of x as true. So let's see what is happening here. So first we have boolean a equal to true, b equal to false. Here when we are doing the addition operation, a is getting converted to integer 1, b is getting converted to integer 0, and we are having the result of a plus b as 1. Now since x is of data type boolean, then this 1 is again getting converted to boolean data type, which is true, and hence x gets the value as true. So just remember that if we convert bool to an integer, we get 1 for true and 0 for false. So this is about booleans. So we have discussed the use case of boolean. As I said that each data type has its own size. So booleans are generally of 1 byte in size. Generally, the size also defines the different values a data type can take. We will see that further. But in case of boolean, we only have two values, true and false. Now let's go on to another data type, which is character. Integer data types are generally used for whole numbers. So if you remember what you learned in maths, that whole number is something which is not having any decimal point. So numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1000, 10,000. So any number which is like this and is not having any decimal point comes under the integer. So how do we declare a number as integer? We simply write int x. So we can write int x equal to 1000 or 10,000. So basically all the numbers that is not having any decimal point or is a whole number comes under integer data type. So we have several variations of integer data type. We have modifiers, which we'll be talking about very soon. Depending upon the modifier and depending upon the size of the operating system, size of integer keeps on changing. So let's say it could be 4 byte, 2 byte or 8 bytes depending upon the size of the operating system. When I am saying size of the operating system, I mean that the operating system could be of 32-bit or 64-bit. Depending upon that implementation, the integer data type changes. So what happens generally is, you need to listen to this point, that size of integer is equal to the size of operating system. So if the operating system is of 16-bit, in this case if the operating system is of 16-bit, which is 2 bytes, the size of integer is going to be 2 bytes. For 32-bit operating system, the size is going to be 4 byte, and for 64-bit operating system, it is going to be 8 bytes, and as we know that 1 byte is equivalent to 8 bits. So that is the reason the size of integer varies from compiler to compiler for different operating systems. In integer also we have various modifiers. We will talk about these modifiers very soon. Let's go on to talk about the floating point numbers. Next, we have floating point data types. For floating point data types generally contain numbers which are real numbers. So the number could be something which has decimal. So it could be 4.8, 0.4. So any number which is going to have a decimal point and digits after that comes under floating point data types. For floating point data types, we have two keywords that we use for declaring a float number or a real number. So we have float and we have double. So let's say I have a number x equal to 4.8. For declaring x as a floating point, we can write float x or double x. So now the difference between float and double is that for double, the number of digits after decimal is double than that of float. So in case of float, let's say if the number of digits after decimal, so let's say if it's 4.778, if this number of digits is 7 in case of float, then in case of double, the number of digits is going to be double of that, which could be, let's say, 15 or 14. So that's why we call it double, because the number of digits after the decimal point is double in case of double data type than that of float. So these are two data types that we have. Talking about the size of float and double, so generally double is, as I said, double the size of float. So let's say float is of 4 bytes, then double will be of 8 bytes. So generally the float is of 4 bytes and double is of 8 bytes. So this is what float is all about. Repeating it, we use float to store numbers, or let's say real numbers, the numbers which generally have a decimal point, and double is having the double precision or the double number of digits after decimal point comparison to float. Now we will talk about few modifiers, and we will also see the range of values each data type can store. So till now we have studied the Boolean data type, the integer data type, the character data type, float, and double. So let's say this is 8 bytes, this is 4 bytes, this character is 1 byte as we have seen. The integer, let's say we are taking integer as 4 byte considering 32-bit operating system, and we know that Boolean has 1 byte. Now I want to discuss that how do we come up with range of a number, or let's say range of a data type. We will always see in a book that, let's say we take an example as character, that character can have values from 127 to 128. Or I can say that character can accommodate 256 values. So how do we come up with this 256 number? So as we can see that character is of 1 byte, and 1 byte is equivalent to 8 bits. So let's put on the bits here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now each bit has 2 options. Now considering that this is going to store positive as well as negative number, this particular bit will be used to store the sign. So depending upon it is 1 or 0, that decides that it is going to be negative or positive. Apart from that, each bit here can have 2 options, either 0 or 1. So if we have to come out with the range of values this particular bit arrangement can give us, we know that each bit can have 2 options, 0 or 1. And in order to come up with the number of options, we will multiply this. So this gives us that the character can have total of 2 to the power 8 values. This is equivalent to 256. So this is how we come up that character can have 256 values. Now in case of character, many times 1 byte or this 256 values are not sufficient. So for that matter, we have a data type called wchar t, which is of 2 bytes, such that it can store more characters. So generally while coding we use char only, that is sufficient for us. Now coming up to this thing. So this range -127 to 128 again comes from here only. So generally the range is from, it's -128 to 127. So generally for any data type, the range of number goes from -2 to the power 7 to 2 to the power 7 minus 1. So this is in case of character when we have negative and positive both numbers. So when we have negative numbers, So what happens is, when we are also considering the sign, that it's negative or positive, as I said, first bit is used for the sign only. So the values range from, again, 2 to the power 7 to 2 to the power 7 minus 1. Now, similar is the case with other numbers. In Boolean, we know that we have only two values, true and false. In case of integer, as I'm saying that let's say integer is of 4 byte, and considering that integer can have positive as well as negative values, if we convert this 4 byte into bits, we get 32 bits. So the total number of values an integer can accommodate is 2 to the power 32. This is the total number of values. And if I talk about the range of values, the range of values will go from minus 2 to the power 31 to 2 to the power 31 minus 1. Now talking about float. So float here, 4 byte is 32 bits. Float is also known as single precision. Precision is the, again, decimal digits after the decimal, and double is known as double precision. So what happens in case of float is, I'll take a new sheet. In case of float, if we go on to see the IEEE convention, let's say we have 32 bits. So let's say this is 32 bits. So the first bit is assigned to the sign, 8 bits are assigned to the exponent, and I'll come to what is an exponent, and 23 bits is assigned to the fractional part or the mantissa. And if we use this to come up with a floating number, it generally looks something like this: sign into fractional part into 2 to the power exponent. So this is how the range of numbers is decided in case of float. So I'll repeat, we have 1 bit for sign, 8 bit for exponent, and what is exponent? This is the exponent. So this is the number that is going to be before decimal, and this decides the number of digits that is going to be after the decimal, and if we multiply these three, we get a floating point number. So if I talk about the range of floating point number, in case of float, it is 3.4 e to the power minus 38 to 3.4 e to the power 38. Now, coming back to this particular sheet here, as we can see that even if we have to store a 0, even if I say, let me take a new sheet. So let's say even if I have to store int x equal to 0, for that also I will occupy 32 bits in the memory, though I'll store all of them as 0. So even though I need to store such a small number, I'm occupying 32 bits in the memory. So we have a solution for this. We have various qualifiers. I'll tell you what are they. So we have various qualifiers: short, long, unsigned, signed. So this is one test case that I discussed. So if I have to store very small number, in that case also I will occupy 32 bits. I have to occupy 32 bits. Or for that matter, let's say I'm storing the roll number of a student, int roll. So we know that roll number can never be negative, and we know that in case of integer, or for that matter in case of integer, if we are storing negative numbers as well, the range of numbers that we have is minus 2 to the power 31 to 2 to the power 31 minus 1. But let's say I don't have to store negative numbers. So what happens that I get more positive numbers in my hand. So I may get numbers from 0 to 2 to the power 32 minus 1. So are you understanding what I'm getting? For handling these cases, we have certain qualifiers. Talking about the sign thing first. So we have a qualifier called unsigned and signed. But when I talk of unsigned, if I let's say I write unsigned int x. So in this case, I am telling the compiler that x will have only positive values. So the values of x will either be 0 or some positive value. If I am saying it is going to be signed, then it may have positive as well as negative. By default, if I write int x like this, then I am saying that it is going to be positive or negative both. By default it is signed. So I can have unsigned int x, signed int x, or I can have signed char or unsigned char. In case of signed char, as we saw, we are considering the negative numbers as well. So we can store numbers from 127 to 128 to 127. In case of unsigned, the numbers that we can have is 0 to 255. In case of float, we only have signed float. We don't have unsigned float. Now we have discussed signed and unsigned. Talking a bit about short and long. Coming back to this scenario, that even if I want to store such a small number, I am occupying 32 bits. So we have qualifiers called short and long. For short, it might happen that if I write something like short int x, in that case, generally short occupies less space than the integer. So if int is occupying 32 bits, then short will occupy 16 bits. Similarly, if we have to store something for which 32 bits is not enough, then in that case we use long. So generally what happens, the size generally goes like this, that the size of short is less than size of int, which is less than size of long. So depending upon the compiler implementation, it might happen that the size of int and short is equal, or for that matter long and int is equal, but it will never be the case that short is greater than int or greater than long, or int is greater than long. Always long will be greater than int and int will be greater than short. Generally we don't use short and long with the character, because character always have 1 bytes.